live now.
Okay, good afternoon, members. Welcome back to this local review body convened from Wednesday, the 18th of June 2025. I'll start with asking Clerk Tracy to pick a new chair, as at the moment, because of my illness, I'm not entirely certain I can continue with the meeting without interrupting it frequently. So I will just go straight over to Tracy. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. So as per Standing Order 5.1, in exceptional circumstances, we can appoint a new chair, as you've heard from Councillor Beretti, due to him having the flu this week. He doesn't feel that he'll be able to participate fully without interrupting the meeting. So I would ask members to appoint a chair for the remainder of the meeting, please. Any nominations? Councillor Thompson?
Happy to nominate Councillor John Campbell if he's prepared to.
Councillor Campbell? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you. If you just give us a minute for Councillor Campbell to move up to the top table. Thank you. While the chair's moving up to the top, I'll just confirm that we've got 5 members present. We've got 4 members present here in the council chambers, and that is the chair, Councillor Drybrook, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Thompson, and we've got Councillor Beretti on Microsoft Teams. Apologies from the previous meeting was Councillor McFarlane, so he did not attend the site visit today and won't participate in the remainder of the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, members. Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones, switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, right and speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. So we've got 2 items to deal with today. I'll ask our clerk to take us through those 2. I don't think we need to go right through all the rigmarole that we did the last time. But if you just remind everybody what these 2 items are. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just pass to the Independent Planning Advisor first, if that's okay, just to remind us what happened at the last meeting, and then I'll come in and just cover the grounds for refusal and the main issues again. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. So, Robert, if you would take us through that, please.
Thanks, Chair. Like you say, there were 2 items which were in front of you at the meeting of the 18th of June this year for consideration. They were both notice of review cases for refusal of planning permission in principle for the erection of a dwelling house. One was at plot 1, land north of Greenhead Cottages, Mansbury, Thornhill, and that had the planning reference 23/0796/PIP. And the second one was at plot 2, land north of Greenhead Cottages, Mansbury, Thornhill, planning reference 23/0797/PIP. So at the meeting of the 18th of June, you made a request which was passed to the applicant to provide all related email correspondence in date order relating to this case. In particular, those emails referenced in the agenda papers which appeared to be missing. So those were the ones cross-referenced dated 16th of May 2024. And they were also mentioned in the applicant's agent's email of the 16th of October 2024. So that was sent out to the applicant's agent on the 4th of July, and we had a response comprising 3 documents which are in front of you. On the same day we got the response. So those are the 3 documents in the supplementary pack. The other thing that you were minded to do at your meeting of the 18th of June 2025 was to undertake a site visit to both of these sites, and that was to take place at 1:30 earlier today, and I'm happy to confirm that that site visit took place. I was in attendance as independent planning advisor, as was Tracy Sonko as the clerk of the local review body, Councillor John Campbell, Councillor Stephen Thompson, Councillor Archie Dryborough, Councillor Tony Beretti, and Councillor Maureen Johnston were all in attendance as well, but the applicant and the applicant's agent were not in attendance. So you were also minded to reconvene for a further meeting at 3:30 this afternoon, so that's where we're at the moment. If it's helpful, Chair, I know you've been out to the site, but I do have a copy of the presentation if members would find it useful to see that.
So, no, I'm getting shakes of head in the room. Shall we just continue with that without your presentation? Yeah, happy to do so, members. Yeah, nods in the room. Okay, Tracy.
Thanks, Chair. So as before, you've got your papers from the June meeting, which remain the same, and within that you had your grounds for refusal, which were on pages 168 to 169, and those were: 1, the proposal is contrary to National Planning Framework 4, Policy 17, and Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, Policy H3, and the related supplementary guidance, which permit the erection of new houses in the countryside only in special circumstances identified in the development plan, and none of these circumstances apply in this case. Specifically, the proposal would not be within or well related to the Kirkland of Morton Small Building Group. And 2, the proposal is contrary to National Planning Framework 4, Policies 14 and 17, and Dumfries and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, Policies OP2 and H3, and the related supplementary guidance, as the application site is located and disproportionately large, such that it would fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house which would accord with or enhance the established character, layout or density of the Kirkland of Morton Small Building Group. And therefore any dwelling house would be unsympathetic to local built forms and have a negative impact on the sense of place and local distinctiveness. And as a reminder, Chair, the main issues for the local review body to consider were: this is an application for planning permission in principle. As such, there are no detailed matters relating to the proposed dwelling. Scottish Government Planning Circular 3/2022, Development Management Procedures, provides that it is for the applicant to decide what level of detail they wish to provide when making an application for planning permission in principle. It also advises that it is open to planning authorities to require further information under Regulation 24, further regulation, where necessary to determine the application. This can include details of the proposed dwelling house. It is noted that such a request has not been made during the consideration of the application by the case officer. Would members wish to request further details of the proposal via procedure notice, or would members be happy to consider the case without any further such details of the dwelling house, noting that this is an application for planning permission in principle? Would the proposal comply with the terms of development plan? In particular, does the proposal meet the terms of LTP2, policies OP2 and H3, and the guidance set out in the adopted LDP2 supplementary guidance in relation to the principle of the proposed development at this application site? Would the proposal fail to comply with MPF4 policies 14 and 17? Specifically, it is agreed that the proposal would not be within or well related to the Kirkland of Morton Small Building Group. Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would accord with or enhance the character, layout or density of the small building group? Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would be sympathetic to local built forms? Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would not have a negative impact on the sense of place and local distinctiveness at this location? It is considered that the proposal does not accord, if it is considered that the proposal does not accord with the terms of the development plan, are there a set of material considerations of sufficient weight to justify a departure from the terms of the development plan? If so, what grounds would such a decision be made, and what reasons would members give for such a decision if it was considered that the proposal departs from the terms of the development plan? If members are minded to reverse the appointed officer's decision and instead grant planning permission for the proposal, what set of conditions and reasons would members wish to see attached, if any? If members are instead minded to vary the terms of the appointed officer's decision, what changes to the specific reasoning for the decision would be required and which additional policies, if any, would be referenced. So the options that you have available to you are, you can decide that you have sufficient information to allow you to enable to determine the review today. Request further information in the form of written submissions. I know you've already done that at the previous meeting, but that you're not precluded from doing that again. The local review body would be required to state precisely what your information you're requiring and who would provide it. You can resolve to hold a hearing, again specifying who would be invited to speak and on what matters. If you resolve that you have sufficient information and no further procedure is required, then the local review body has full powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. The decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. Your planning advisor is present today. He was not the case officer or the appointed officer for this application, and he will provide independent advice as required on matters of planning policy, law or process. And our solicitor is also present today, and he will act independently if the local review body require any specific advice on matters of the law. So I'll now pass back to the chair and he can continue to lead the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So, members, do we have sufficient enough information to make a determination today? Archie, I see you want to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think the site visit was actually very useful in this particular case, and I think we've got enough information to make a decision today.
Thank you. Are there any alternatives? Don't see anyone want to come in, so we'll make that determination today. So I'll open it up for debate. Archie, you want to come back in?
I'm going to ask a question first, Chair, before, and it's maybe me get some support from Mr. Dawson, the solicitor. These are two applications on the same site, and we got them both site visits for the same reason, basically. So can we make a decision on both of them, or do we have to do them individually?
Yeah, I'll bring our solicitor in.
Thank you, Chair. As there are two separate planning applications, and there's two items on the agenda, both decisions have to be made separately. But I would ask Robert just to confirm my understanding there.
Thank you. Robert?
I would agree with that, Chair. In sequence, the first one's plot 1 and the second decision would be for plot 2, but they have to be considered individually. I would agree with that, yeah.
Thank you very much. So it looks like we'll determine plot 1 first and then move on to plot 2 after that. So while we're on plot 1, Archie, want to come back in?
Can I suggest, Chair, that we uphold the officer's recommendation within that, for the reasons given?
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to find a reason why we wouldn't, but just for clarity, so it was just having seen the site now and the location for both applications, I did want to get a little bit of clarity just from the officer, just in terms of, and I know maybe we're missing some of the presentation, but it was just about the small building group, and if we could maybe just see that in a bit more detail, because being on site, you can see that there's a few buildings to the sort of southwest, I guess, that aren't part of that group. You might say they're sort of satellites to the small building group, but I can see why somebody might think, oh, there's a bit of a gap site, but it maybe doesn't conform to the sort of linear layout of the settlements that are there already. So it's just to maybe ask for a little bit of advice around, or just a little bit of detail on what would or wouldn't relate to the Kirkland and Morton Small Business Group and just the policies 4, 14 and 17 in National Planning Framework aspect of it, because there's two separate reasons for refusal, so it's just to bottom those out. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. Possibly the most useful way I could do this is by sharing my screen to cover, if you just bear with me, the supplementary guidance document on housing in the countryside. I'm just trying to do that. There's a part of the supplementary guidance, but basically you've got local development plan 2 for Dumfries and Galloway, which is present local development plan adopted in October 2019, and there is supplementary guidance to policy H3, which is the housing in the countryside policy, and that is 2.0, the small building groups, and it says a small building group is defined as 3 or more separate habitable or occupied houses which are well related to each other and which would contribute to a sense of place. A small building group must consist primarily of dwelling houses forming a clearly identifiable nucleus with strong visual cohesion. A small building group should also be capable of being viewed as a group in its landscape setting. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, this location is allocated as a small building group. But when you're actually looking at applications within a small building group, you have further guidance there. So it says at 2.6 of that supplementary guidance, proposals within all small building groups will need to accord with and enhance the character of the group and not have a detrimental impact on the landscape to be considered acceptable. Proposals on sites which are naturally contained by established boundaries such as woodland, a hedge, a dry stone dyke or a slope that would form a backdrop to the site and infill sites will be considered favourably. It says an infill site can be defined as a small gap in a continuous line of built development where it is possible to locate 1 or 2 houses. If a group consists simply of frontage houses along a road, infill development will be supported where gaps for adequate plots exist. Then it goes on to look at 2.8. I see that you now have this on your screen. It looks at ribbon development, and it talks about while there will be opportunities to complete or round off small building groups, ribbon development can become a problem when it results in the rural character being lost with development dominating otherwise rural views. Then it talks about continuous linear development at 2.9, and then finally at 2.10 it says that proposals which would result in or extend an existing ribbon of development will only be supported where there is an existing topographical stop, such as an established hedge, tree belt or woodland, dry stone dyke, road, path, stream or a slope that would form a backdrop to the site. Then you've got illustrations of those examples on page 7 of the supplementary guidance, which is just overleaf. And then you look at the size limitations, which because of the size of the existing group there don't really come into play because you're looking at a third of what's already quite a large existing small building group here, and you've got 2 applications for planning permission in principle, of which plot 1's the first. So the illustrations are on the next page, so scrolling on you can see these kind of illustrations, what's considered to be acceptable rounding off, what's considered to be a gap site on top left, and then beneath that what's considered to be unacceptable ribbon development on the left hand side with no containing boundary, and also on the right hand side you'll see something similar just to the left of that road, then what's considered to be acceptable as point 2 because there's a kind of feature in that case being the road. 30 looks like 39 in that visualization at the bottom left shows a kind of rounding off opportunity, if you like. So that gives you the kind of opportunities that are considered to be acceptable. And that's really, I think those are the key parts of the supplementary guidance that you would look at. So it's a criteria-based policy. This is a small building group, and you've got to basically decide if you feel that the proposal adequately meets that guidance, which comes under policy H3.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks, Tracy, for putting that up on the screen. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, no, thanks. It's really helpful just to see it demonstrated in terms of, because it helps clarify what the policies, or the supplementary guidance is talking about. I suppose, you know, some folk might say, well, common sense says it's just filling in a gap if you looked at it on a map, but it would be a kind of perpendicular spur, if you like, to an otherwise sort of a linear development. So on that basis, you know, you can sort of see if you're adhering strictly to policy, it could be interpreted in that way. I'm just, in terms of the NPF 4, 14 and 17, I suppose it's about according with the established character as well. I'm just wondering if you could say something about that, because it did seem that some of the buildings in the small building group could be sort of similar in terms of the row, but some of them were quite distinct as well. So it's really just about, it seems there's a bit of subjective interpretation about that part of it. So it'd be helpful just to maybe hear a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Robert?
Thanks. If you're looking at NPF 4 Policy 17, it appears in your papers on 175, sorry, that's page 175. And it's a fairly generic policy for all types of development. It says at Part A, development proposals will be designed to improve the quality of an area, whether in urban or rural locations and regardless of scale. Now, the application, well, both applications you have in front of you today are for permission in principle, so you're looking at testing the principle of single houses on separate plots at this location. So it makes it then difficult to look at design quality in place. It does also say at point C of that policy, development proposals that are poorly designed, detrimental to the amenity of the surrounding area, or inconsistent with the 6 qualities of successful places that are set out within that policy will not be supported. MPF 4 Policy 17, so that's in your papers at pages 177 to 178, does set out principles allowing new homes in rural areas, and it says it will be supported where the development is suitably scaled, sited and designed to be in keeping with the character of the area. And then it says the development is on a site allocated for housing within the LDP. Now, in this case, because you have the allocated small building group at this location in terms of LDP2, your consideration is then, would houses at these sites conform with the character of that small building group, and would they help enhance the appearance of it as well? So there is that question of looking at the relevant policies in the local development plan too. It does kind of set out a range of options, if you like, for local development plans. And then you have a whole load of other options, if you like, for housing in rural areas. So how it contributes towards local living, taking into account local housing needs, economic considerations, transport needs, houses in remote rural areas, and new homes that support the resettlement of previously inhabited areas as well. So those are really broad principles rather than the kind of details in relation to a particular small building group.
Thank you, Robert. So we've got a motion on the table. I take it, do you want to second that, Stephen?
So, having heard all that, I mean, I can see that probably the leaning of the interpretation would be to uphold. I think the grounds are sufficient. I mean, I can't see anything that carries enough weight to go against what the officers have recommended. So I think I'm happy to second Councillor Driver. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been seconded. Are there any alternatives to that motion? No. Okay, Tracy, could you just remind everyone what the decision was?
Yep, thanks, Chair. So members have agreed to uphold the appointed officer's decision and refuse the application. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to plot 2. Do you want to just take us quickly through that as well, Robert?
Thank you, Chair. The circumstances in relation to plot 2 are the same as I described before. This went to the local review body meeting on the 18th of June 2025. Members were minded to request the additional information in relation to the emails. That request was made of the applicant's agent on the 4th of July. There was a response provided the same day. You've got the 3 documents in the supplementary pack that are in front of you today that cover that issue, and the applicant's agent is happy that all relevant emails were included in the papers that you have. You also wanted to undertake a site visit, and that was scheduled for earlier today at 1:30. Again, the same parties as per plot 1 were in attendance, including myself and Tracy Sonko, the 5 elected members, and we're reconvening at this meeting at 3:30 to consider that case as well. Again, the presentation's available if you want to see it, Chair.
Thank you. Shakes her head in the rooms. Tracy?
Thanks, Chair. So the grounds for refusal, which were in your original papers on pages 366 to 367, was 1. The proposal is contrary to National Planning Framework 4, Policy 17, and of Race and Galloway Council Local Development Plan 2, Policy H3, and the related supplementary guidance, which permit the erection of new houses in the countryside only in special circumstances identified in the development plan, and none of these circumstances apply in this case. Specifically, the proposal would not be within or well related to the Kirkland of Morton Small Building Group. And 2, the proposal is contrary to National Planning Framework 4, Policies 14 and 17, and of Reconvened Council Local Development Plan 2, policies OP2 and H3, and the related supplementary guidance, as the application site is located and disproportionately large, such that it would fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house, which would accord with or enhance the established character, layout or density of the Kirkland of Morton small building group, and therefore any dwelling house would be unsympathetic to local built forms and have a negative impact on the sense of place and local distinctiveness. Again, just for the avoidance of doubt, Chair, I will read the main issues, which will be repeating what I said previously, but as it's a separate application, I'll go through them. So the main issues for local review body to consider. This is an application for planning permission in principle. As such, there are no detailed matters relating to the proposed dwelling. Scottish Government Planning Circular 3/2022 Development Management Procedures provides that it is for the applicant to decide what level of detail they wish to provide when making an application for planning permission in principle. It also advises that it is open to planning authorities to require further information under Regulation 24 where necessary to determine the application. This can include details of the proposed dwelling house. It's noted that such a request has not been made during the consideration of the application by the case officer. Would members wish to request further details of the proposal via procedure notice, or would members be happy to consider this case without any further such details of the dwelling house, noting that it's an application for planning permission in principle? Would the proposal comply with the terms of the development plan? In particular, does the proposal meet the terms of LDP2, policies OP2 and H3, and the guidance set out in the adopted LDP2 supplementary guidance in relation to the principle of the proposed development at this application site? Would the proposal fail to comply with MPF4 policies 14 and 17? Specifically, is it agreed that the proposal would not be within or well related to Kirkland of Morton small building group, taking into account the previous decision in relation to Plot 1? Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would accord with or enhance the character, layout or density of the small building group? Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would be sympathetic to local built forms? Would the application site, by virtue of its location and size, fail to allow the erection of a dwelling house upon it which would not have a negative impact on the sense of place and local distinctiveness at this location? If it is considered that the proposal does not accord with the terms of the development plan, are there a set of material considerations of sufficient weight to justify a departure from the terms of the development plan? If so, on what grounds would such a decision be made, and what reasons would members give for such a decision if it was considered that the proposal departs from the terms of the development plan? If members are minded to reverse the appointed officer's decision and instead grant planning permission for the proposal, what set of conditions and reasons would members wish to see attached, if any? And if members are minded to vary the terms of the appointed officer's decision, what changes to the specific reasoning for the decision would be required, and which additional policies, if any, would be referenced? So your options, as same as the previous item, are you can decide that you have sufficient information to determine the review today, request further information in the form of written representations, stating precisely the information you're seeking and who would provide it, resolve to hold a hearing, again specifying who would be invited to speak and on what matters, or resolve that you have sufficient information and that no further procedure is required, and then you have full powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. And the decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. Your planning advisor is still present, along with your solicitor if you need any independent planning advice or law, matters of law. So I'll pass back to you, Chair, to continue the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy. So, members, do we have sufficient enough information to make a determination? Archie?
I think we do, Chair, and I suggest that we uphold the decision of the officer.
Thank you very much. So that's a motion. Councillor Thompson, Stephen?
Yeah, and I think without being too presumptuous, I think the helpful detail from Robert earlier on for the previous application, I think pertains to this equally, so I think I'd be happy on that basis to support Archie's, Councillor Dryburgh's motion.
Thank you. So we've got a motion that's been seconded. Are there any alternatives? Don't see anyone wishing to come in. So, Tracy, that's a decision of the LRB.
Thanks, Chair. Members have agreed to uphold the decision of the appointed officer and refuse the application. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't have any further business, so thank you for your attendance today.